be better allies to people with disabilities. And that was it.
Thank you, Jen. Do you want to plug the Sip and Schmooze? Or share it?
Sure. We'll be doing another Sip and Schmooze, which we had done last year. It's going to be on February 29th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with it's just an opportunity to not do business, to socialize and have fun. And it was a lot of fun last year, even though the rain didn't help us. It did not cooperate with us. So anyway, there is a link for you to RSVP. And as we get closer to that date, when we have a final head count, we will let everybody know the address of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. All right. Where are we? Sip and Schmooze fundraising. You should probably already also do that. Can you give a plug for fundraising?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the Simple Greek restaurant night was a wonderful success. The restaurant reported about $925 of sales, and we got 20% of that. And so really great. Thank you for all your participation and support. They were lovely to work with. Nice, independent, family-owned restaurant. And then the PTA donation from Escuela Key. It was really, I felt like I found a lucky penny falling from a wishing well. Originally last year, they had mailed SEPTA a charitable donation of $2,500. We actually never received it. It got lost in the mail. And so they were reconciling the books and reached out and said, hey, are you going to deposit this? And so then they decided, oh, well, you know what? We actually have money this year as well. So I'll just cut a different check. And so Escuela Key has gifted SEPTA $5,000 and
$5,000 they doubled.
So again, like the lucky penny. Thank you, Escuela Key. And then the last one is the fundraising, a shopping night, which we've not tried in a little while. So it's going to be at Scout and Molly on March 20th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. They closed down the boutique. It's again another independent business. They're lovely to work with. They provide the snacks and refreshments, and then they will be giving SEPTA back 20% of sales proceeds from that shopping night. So it's kind of like a what is it? It's a boutique in Mosaic. So it's Fairfax County, just over. It's very easy to find parking there, and they have everything from clothing to shoes and handbags. Yeah. March 20th.
All right, Greg, over to you.
Okay, I'll keep it quick. We're a little over halfway through the school year, and so far, just a quick recap, we've brought in a little over $12,000, and against the budget, our budget was $14,900. Of course, a big part of that was the generous donation we received from Escuela Key. On the expense side of the house, we've done pretty well, actually. Can you go down to the bottom of that? It'll show we've spent under $12,000 so far. It's not encouragement to go on a spending spree against a budget of $18,400. So that's tracking really nicely. And overall, we're stable at about $15,000 balance in our bank account. So we're doing pretty good. So any questions? I never get any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Gratitude for keeping us on track and keeping all the receipts for all of the mini grants fulfillments also that have now officially all been fulfilled. So thank you to all who donated and participated in mini grants in addition to the 8,500 that went to the mini grants. We haven't crunched the numbers, but there were additional hundreds, probably thousands, that came through the Amazon wish list, which fulfilled, I think, close to every teacher who had a request through the Amazon wish list got partial, if not all of their items. So again, like last year, almost just multiplying the effort, the outputs for the mini grant fulfillments. So thanks for all of that. And Greg kept us on track with all of the receipts for that. Greg, can you say a couple more things? We're fixing the sound here. Can you just tell us a joke? Hello? A
Yeah.
joke.
Okay, I can start reading numbers. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Yeah, I
working
don't
on it.
want to steal Karen's thunder because she comes up next, but so far we're up to 97 members, and that's still short of our goal. So whatever anybody can do to start getting folks in, and I know Karen's going to talk about that too.
Thanks for advancing that. I think Karen isn't connected yet, so that's perfect.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I can kind of cover her thing mainly just from the books that so far we've got 97 paid members this year.
Fantastic. Thank you. Let's get over 100 before our next meeting. $10 per membership online. Okay.
It's hard to hear.
Wendy, you there? Over to you.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Now you can see me. That's always good. Okay, so I'm here to provide the advocacy update. So first I want to just piggyback on what Jen had said, that she took our concerns to the CCPTA, that we don't feel that we as SEPTA should be the only PTA advocating for students with disabilities. Students with disabilities are part of their homeschool populations, and so their PTAs should be advocating for their needs. So we have made that ask at the CCPTA, and I want to let you all know that that's out there, because the second half of it is for you as parents to ask for that, make yourselves heard, basically demand representation from your local PTAs. In my experience, PTAs go through leadership changes, and sometimes the leadership doesn't always understand that advocacy is a really big part of a PTA's mission. So if you have difficulties with that, then I would suggest reaching out to the CCPTA. They definitely understand that advocacy is a core part of the mission of a PTA, but I guess I just want to let you all know that you are entitled. Your students with disabilities are entitled to, representation with your school's PTAs, and sometimes that's where issues can best be addressed. We really do try to focus on a system-wide focus here at SEPTA, and sometimes there are more school-centric issues, and that's where your local PTA would come in. So going from a very small microcosmic level, now let's go big and let's talk about what's going on in the state of Virginia. So right now the General Assembly is in session. Lots of bills are out there, including many that impact education and many that specifically impact special education or students with disabilities. So the Virginia PTA gets very heavily involved in this, and we rely a lot on their efforts and kind of piggyback on those. So I just sent out to the listserv a Virginia PTA bulletin that has a lot of information about how parents can specifically get involved. Scroll down in that message and you can even click on links and see, because there are several bills currently active that do impact students with disabilities. I'm going to highlight a few for you tonight. One is HB 501. It's regarding emergency procedures. We are very excited about this bill because it basically mirrors our advocacy here in APS. It would require public elementary and secondary schools in their building evacuation plans to include provisions that maximize the opportunity for students with the mobility impairments to evacuate the building alongside their non-mobility impaired peers. APS doesn't do this right now. We, like I said, have been working on it, but we would really like to see this bill go through. It passed the House, which is great. It's crossed over into the Senate and it's in committee. We've spoken out in support of it. We'll continue to follow it. The second bill is a big special education bill that started in the House, got amended. School divisions didn't like certain parts of it and were successful in amending it. But as best I can tell, this bill basically died. It got passed, but with an amendment saying that it shall not become effective unless reenacted by the 2025 session of the General Assembly. Moving on, have better news about the next set of bills. This was a pair of Senate and House bill, SB 619 and HB 767, that were truly terrible. And just to let you know, before anybody gets worried about this bill died. But we opposed it. We wrote against it. The Virginia PTA not only opposed it, but testified against it, which they don't always do. It was that bad. The bill would have expanded the definition of abused and neglected child to include children who are chronically absent for any reason, even when the absence is excused. While there was an exception for students with disabilities, it wasn't broad enough to basically make up for the problems in this bill, which would basically have criminalized parents whose children miss school for legitimate reasons. And obviously that will include a lot of parents of children with disabilities. So we were glad that the Virginia PTA opposed this so strongly, and we were very glad that this bill failed. But that's just an example of the type of bill that is out there. And things like this get introduced every year that have really negative impacts on students with disabilities. So it's good, good to be vigilant. So moving on to facilities, we meet quarterly with facilities leadership. We had a good, positive recent meeting, but we would like to see more actual movement. This relates to partially the evacuation planning that we've asked for, but other things as well. So we have asked for more action items. I'm not going to get into each of those specifically, but there are several things we're working on. What I do want to spend a little more time on is bullying. This is an issue of focus and concern for us. We have concerns in two areas. How can APS proactively create school climates that reduce the incidence of bullying? We don't want anyone to be bullied, but our particular concern is the bullying against students with disabilities, and how APS, specifically the schools, can address it better when it does occur. We raised this in our meeting, a recent meeting with Dr. Duran and senior leadership. At that point, we focused more, given limited time, on the former. How can they proactively create school climates? And we were having this discussion, and APS is now acknowledging that bullying is an issue. So I think that's at least good that there's that acknowledgement. There was a recent public forum on it. If you haven't listened to that, it's recorded, so you can go find that. But what we really want to focus on now is the second part of this, how APS needs to respond better to incidents of bullying when they do occur. And we'd like to hear from you. about this so that we can really understand what the issues are, what issues people are experiencing, and bring that back, not in an identifiable way, but bring back the issues that are really happening to the APS senior leadership, because that's the kind of data that we need in order to ask for them to address it. So we want to hear from families. Do you know how to report bullying? What's your experience when you do report it, good or bad? Did you hear back? Was the bullying recognized as bullying? Was it addressed? Was it addressed in a way that you were satisfied with and that was effective? So help us help you by giving us this. The SEPTA feedback form is always the best way. I'll put it in the chat again to reach us. And finally, the advocacy committee will meet again within the next couple of weeks. So if you could get back to us soon, that would be great so that we can address it at the meeting. And I think that is it.
You have a question, Wendy?
Sure.
Bullying, if all the schools are collecting the data the same way, is it rolling up to the aggregate level?
I'm so sorry, but I can't hear that.
You're on mute. It was on mute. Post is on mute.
Just a minute.
On mute.
Can you hear me, Wendy?
I'm kind of like, do you see it's on, it says just right there? Can you hear me, Wendy?
I can hear you now. I
Okay.
think the speaker was just too far away.
Okay. So with the bullying data, do you know if the each school is collecting the data in the same way?
Do
And
I know what data they're collecting? I don't know that. What we're asking for is, what I'm asking for is information from families about families' experience. When I said we need data, that's what I was referencing.
Okay. With respect to the recent like community workshop that happened a couple weeks ago, did they talk about how that information was gathered from schools? If it was gathered using the same in the same manner, and did it roll up? Do you know?
So I think I would refer you to the recording of that so that
Okay.
you can get it directly from that. You know, I don't want to speak for APS or their data collection or my recollection of a meeting that I went to 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. Okay.
I have some additional information. At the last ASEC meeting, OSC talked about bullying.
I'll come closer. So at the last ASAC meeting a couple weeks ago, Office of Special Education, particularly Kelly Krug, spoke about bullying. So when those minutes come out, people can reference those. But the question was, you know, what kind of data do they have, right? And right now, individual schools have their various forms. I would say they're not all consistent, right? And there's the centralized APS one that has more fields than some of the individual school data forms, but they're working on unifying that and centralizing it. I don't know a time frame, they didn't say, but Kelly did say that that she had data, and I'm just going to read from my raw notes again. Please don't quote me exactly; it'll be in the minutes. And she is supposed to provide it in writing back to ASAC. January 2024 data from the start of the 2023-24 school year. So, you know, August 29th or whatever it was, there were 41 reported bullying incidents out of 10 schools. Now, I think that is, you know, those official forms that get filled out that a lot of people probably don't even know exist. And she said she gave high level breakdowns. 16 of those were students with disability, 25 are without a disability. They broke it down into English language learners or not, Black, Hispanic, white, Asian, where it was, whether it was the bathroom, the bus, the gym, locker room, classroom, that sort of thing. But students with disabilities was a relatively high percentage. Granted, it's not a huge data set, but I think a lot of it doesn't go reported, was where the discussion was going. And she said that, and I specifically asked about the breakdown elementary and middle versus high. And she said, you know, there was only one school that stood out with a higher than number, higher average of reports, and it was a middle school, is all that she could share. So I don't know, she didn't say anything. So there's some data that OSC shared verbally, and they're focusing on it. And ASAC has requested more information.
Thank you, Kristen.
All right. Thank you all. Thanks, Wendy, for the update and all the work you do. Keeping the advocacy committee on top of everything, and SEPTA on top of all the advocacy opportunities. Kristen, you come on back.
All right, so,
I want to re-highlight everything Escuela Key has done from giving us, giving SEPTA a very nice donation. And as you guys were saying before, the Little Friends for Peace conflict resolution work that they've been doing as well. We have a couple schools, as always, in need of liaisons. So in that list that's shared is not 100% accurate at this point. Garland Springs, we have a new opening because somebody's moving schools. Fleet, Long Branch, Randolph, Gunston, and HB Woodlawn. Kathleen Clark was able to find me a name for Glebe and Arlington Tech. So this week, I need to follow up on that. And then I want to remind folks that next year, ATS, Barcroft, and Hoffman Boston are going to be without a liaison. They currently have one now, but that person will be, you know, moving on to the next level of school. So if you know somebody there, but and again, just thanks to the parent liaisons. I share a lot of stuff through the parent liaison listserv. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please just message me directly at this point. And thank you very much, liaisons, for distributing the flyers, posters, information to your schools, and reminding us that we need to get stuff translated more quickly into Spanish. We're working on it. But thank you, everyone.
All right, last but not least, I don't, is Melissa, are you here for the mini grants? Well, I think I already shared, we had 50 applications submitted, all 22 mini grants awards have now been fulfilled, and multiple beneficiaries of the Amazon wish list, thanks to all of your support, and also the parent liaison spreading the word to get additional support far and wide for the mini grant. So successful mini grant year. Without further ado, I would like to introduce, I'll stop sharing, and we will pin our guest speaker. I'd like to introduce Diane Monig. She is the Director of Programs for the ARC of Northern Virginia. In this role, Diane oversees 2 programs, Transition Points, providing opportunities, information, networking, and transition support that provides information and resources to individuals with disabilities and their families at critical decision points across the lifespan, and Tech for Independent Living program that provides customized lessons using their own ARC to Independence app that fosters independence in travel, daily living, safety, and employment skills. Dan has worked with the ARC of Northern Virginia for 20 years. Prior to that, she worked with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities in day support services, residential services, and employment support. Her passion is to ensure people with disabilities can live an inclusive and meaningful life in the community. So a wealth of experience and passion to share with us, particularly those interested in successful transition. Diane, thank you so much for joining us and for your presentation.
Thank you so much for having me here tonight. So let me go ahead and share my screen. We'll get started. And I am happy to take questions. I'm trying to get my screen so I can. Okay. I'm happy to take questions throughout, whether you want to raise your hand or type them in the chat, that's fine. If not, I'll just stop through different points in the presentation. So what we're going to talk about tonight, oh, well, let me tell you a little bit. I imagine most of you are familiar with the Arc of Northern Virginia, but I'll talk a little bit about who we are. So we are the local chapter of a national organization. There's 21 chapters in Virginia and then over 600 across the country. And every ARC is a little bit different. Our ARC is primarily an advocacy and education ARC, where some ARCs are huge, like the ARC of Prince William County provides residential services, respite, employment. The ARC of Loudoun has a school for students with autism. So there's a wide variety of different services provided by different ARCs, but our mission is all the same, which is pretty much to promote and protect the human rights of people with disabilities and support their full inclusion in the community. So a little bit about our services. Like I said, we do a lot of education and referral, and we do that mainly through our Transition Points program. That's our overarching kind of information program, where we provide information across the lifespan. So from early intervention through special education. That yellow one that you see there is transitioning from school to adult services. The green one is employment and day supports. The orange one is on housing. Those three are our like kind of transition related guides. And then finally, after housing is aging with a disability, aging of the individual and then aging of the caregiver. So these guides are all available to download from our website, and they're available in 6 different languages. Again, all downloadable from our website. We do lots of webinars throughout the month, and all of our webinars are archived on our YouTube channel, so you can always look for things there. All of the topics that I'm going to talk about tonight, we offer, and I'm going to spend like 2 to 5 minutes on each topic. We spend a whole 2 days in the fall on all of these topics, and each topic is spent like an hour to an hour and a half. So I'm giving you kind of a little snippet tonight, but there's lots more to share. We also offer Transition Lunch and Learn twice a month. And the first this virtual, and the first Wednesday of the month is pretty much what I'm going to do tonight. And then the third Wednesday of the month is with an expert. And actually this upcoming one, February 21st, we have invited LaVoice Reed from the Arlington CSB to come and talk about CSB and waiver services. So that might be a good one for you all to attend. We also have an information and referral portal on the very front page of our website, where you can ask a question. Lucy Beednell, our Director of Advocacy, responds to those. We also have a really super resource library on our website that has lots of one-page fact sheets on a variety of different topics, many of the things I'm going to talk about tonight, plus a whole host of other topics. We also do advocacy, so both legislative, both local and state advocacy, and then self-advocacy. We offer 2 self-advocacy groups, one that I facilitate called People First for Young Adults, for people between the ages, in transition age, so from like 16 to 26. We meet hybrid, so both virtually and in person. And then we have People First, A Life Like Yours Toastmasters group. They meet the 3rd Thursday of the month virtually only. And that's a real Toastmasters chapter. So they work on public speaking and legislative discussions. And then we also have the services that we provide. We do contract with the different Northern Virginia Community Services Boards, and we provide support coordination for people who have the DD waiver. We also have a program called Guardian of Last Resort, where we serve as guardian for 50 individuals through a grant with the Virginia Department of Aging and Rehab Services. And these are for people who have absolutely no one else in their life and no funds. Then we also have a special needs trust program, which I'm going to go into in more in depth. So I'm not going to talk too much about that here. And then finally, we also have our Tech for Independent Living program. We created an app called Arc to Independence, and we provide general and customized lessons for individuals around daily living, employment, safety, and travel training skills. Once a month, we offer a demo, a virtual kind of demo about that to learn more about the program. But if anyone's interested in that, I'm happy to share. Okay, so let's get started. So why is this transition from school to adult services? How do we successfully plan for that? And pretty much is knowing kind of the things that you have to do. Once you leave the school system, everything becomes based on eligibility, and it's specific to that agency, and also funding availability. As you are all well aware, there's waiting lists for many services, and that can make you feel like that poor lady there in the picture. But although you may feel that way, your young adult is excited about graduating, about being in the community, about having a job and opportunities. And so how do we make that happen for them? So where do we begin? So this is kind of a to-do list. All of those things highlighted in yellow, I'm going to talk about tonight. So I'm not going to read them all in the list. But aside from that, once your young adult is getting ready to turn 18, you want to obtain a government issued ID card. We actually have DMV Connect coming to our office in March. I can't recall the date off the top of my head. So you can come to our office rather than go to the DMV to get either your real ID or a government issued ID or Walker's ID. Then we also have, you also want to be thinking about how is your young adult going to get around? What can they use for transportation? Maybe you want to apply for Metro Access, which is a door-to-door paratransit service. Or maybe they can take the bus or the Metro on their own, and you want to apply for a reduced fare card and work on some travel training. And then always, always most important is continually to work with your young adult on practicing self-advocacy skills and independent living skills, because they are gonna go a long way no matter what kind of post-secondary path they choose. So then there's some other things that maybe you're gonna do depending on your path, and then also what a good idea to do. So if you have not signed up for the Arc of Northern Virginia's e-newsletter resources, that goes out every other week. You can sign up on the very front page of our website, so you get to know all of the things that we have going on. Like I said, we have lots of informational webinars all the time. You also want to think about exploring social and recreation opportunities, what's available when your young adult leaves the school system. So important to maintain that social connection. That's another kind of one-pager that's in our resource library, where we provide a lot of different connections for different recreation opportunities in our area. And then also building a supported decision-making team. I'm not going to go into that now because we'll talk more about that. I don't talk about housing tonight. I do point out that we have that orange transition points guide around housing, but if anybody has questions, we can talk more about that tonight. And then the other kinds of things to think about that maybe you're going to do depending on your path. So if your child or young adult is going to want, their goal is competitive employment, they may work with DARS for those vocational rehab services. Maybe your child wants to explore either 2 or 4-year colleges. I don't talk too much about that tonight, but if you have questions, again, I'm happy to provide information. And then finally, maybe you're definitely going to look at what kind of decision-making supports are out there. And I'll talk a little bit about least restrictive to the most restrictive as far as guardianship goes tonight as a legal tool. Okay, so let's start with kind of what does it look like what are the resources out there to fund future life? And so you look at that, there's three kind of sources of public funds. And the biggest one is the Developmental Disabilities Medicaid waiver. So waivers fund lifelong supports for people to live in the community. And the process to begin that waiver, the point of entry to apply for a waiver is through the Arlington CSB. And I have the phone number up there. There are 3 DD waivers. The community living waiver, that's the most robust waiver. That's the only one that provides 24/7 group home support. And then there's the family and individual supports waiver. That's that middle tier waiver. And then the building independence waiver. That's for someone who needs the least amount of supports. Has an independent job, lives independently in the community with maybe some drop-in support. And DD waivers cover a menu of services, everything from employment and day support to assistive technology, to respite, to nursing care, a whole host of different services. And there's 3 eligibility criteria they look at for that. And the first one is functional ability. And they determine that by utilizing what's called the VIDES assessment. And this is a different assessment based on the age of the individual. We have a section on our website, again, in the resource library on waivers. And we have that VIDES assessment there. So if you haven't applied for a waiver yet, I would strongly encourage you to look at the assessment to understand what kinds of questions that they're going to ask so that you're better prepared. And the individual has to show functional need in 3 out of the 8 categories, that are listed there. Then they're going to look at the diagnosis. The individual needs to have obviously a developmental disability diagnosis and also an IQ score, although they don't use that to determine anything. They do want to see an IQ score. And then finally, financial criteria. And by that, they're looking at the financial criteria of the individual, not of the family as a whole. And the individual can only have a resource cap of $2,000. So that means no more than $2,000 in their bank account. And the individual can't earn more than $2,829 per month. That's 300% of the current SSI amount. So again, as you are probably familiar, there is a waiting list for the waiver. And wait time is very unpredictable because it's based on urgency of need. There are 3 kind of waiting list tiers. Priority 1 means you need services within 1 year. Priority 2 needs services within 1 to 5. And priority 3 needs services in over 5 years. So priority 3 is mostly children who are in school, who are getting lots of services through the school system, living at home, and things are being managed fine. So very important to stay in contact with once you're on the waiting list, to stay in contact with your support coordinator. Because as things in your life change, the individual will move up on the waiting list. Like if the individual is having medical issues or behavioral challenges, maybe a parent lost a job, or a parent is experiencing health issues. All of those kinds of crises or change in life situation can change where you are on the waiting list. So while you're on the waiting list for a waiver, there's a couple of things that you can take advantage of. Annually, you can apply for what's called IFSP funds. That's the Individual and Family Support Program. And you can apply for that annually for up to $1,000. And it can be used on a variety, pretty much anything, assistive technology, camps, classes, respite, a whole host of different services or goods. If your child has a medical need, you can apply for a CCC plus waiver, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. A benefit to living in Arlington is that while you're on the waiting list for a waiver, the CSB or Community Services Board will provide, once your child graduates, will provide employment or day support services through local county funds, local tax dollars that's approved by the County Board of Supervisors. And so those funds are used to pay employment service organizations for these support services. Also in Arlington, you have the option of self-directed services, which we're going to talk in a little bit more about, like adult service providers. But if you get to the point and you're looking at some of these providers and you're not finding that this is really going to be a good fit for your young adult, you might want to explore what's called self-directed services, where you get a certain amount of money from the county to develop your own day, own week for your young adult. So let's say he or she wants to go to the museum 1 day a week, and then maybe volunteer 1 day a week, and then maybe work 2 days a week. You can use some of that money to pay for a companion to help kind of go with him or her and navigate those things and create your own kind of flexible, meaningful daily schedule and week.
Apologies. We're just going to pause and do a text switch real quick.
Okay. While you do that, I'm going to slide my door open to let my dog out. Okay. Are you good to go on? Okay. So I did want to mention, as I mentioned a minute ago, if you're on the waiting list for a waiver, you might want to explore, if your child has medical or nursing needs, you might want to explore the CCC Plus or the Commonwealth Coordinated Care Waiver. You apply for this through your local Department of Social Services. There's no waiting list for this, but it provides, as compared to the DD waiver, that provides a whole menu of different services. The CCC Plus waiver is just focused on personal care. And there's a 56-hour weekly cap on that personal care, and it's all aimed at home care and nursing. And so the assessment includes lots of questions around bathing and toileting and eating, any types of medical needs. So Moms in Motion, I have the website up there, the link. Moms in Motion has a nice screening tool on their website that asks a lot of the questions that the nurse will ask during the intake interview. And you can answer all of those questions, and it'll help you get a better idea if your child may be eligible for that. Okay, so before I move on to DARS, does anybody have any questions around waivers? Yep. Okay, well, I'll keep going. Okay, so DARS is kind of the other, I just want to look in that chapter. DARS is the other source of public funding to provide support for employment primarily. But while you're in school, while your child is in school, DARS has a service called Pre-ETS, that's Employment and Transition Service. And this is a relatively new service within the last few years. These services are eligible to all students with a disability between the ages of 14 and 22. It's a very simple application process. The student only needs like an IEP or a 504. There's no waiting list. But the whole idea of the Pre-ETS services is to help better prepare young people for when they leave the school system, so that they're better prepared for a job in the community. So even if the student's goal is not at this point a competitive job, that's okay. They're still going to be able to have access to these types of services. So things like job exploration, work-based learning experiences, instruction in self-advocacy, workplace readiness training that works on independent living skills and social skills, and then also counseling for post-secondary education and training. And so some of these services are provided in small groups, and some of them are provided one-on-one. Sometimes they provide these services in conjunction with the school and will come to the school to provide them. And sometimes there's other things that are offered either on the weekend or in the summer. And your student is eligible for these services multiple years. You don't have to wait until the very last year or 2 years before they're about to graduate. So the other section, so there's pre-ETs, then those are the services that are available while your young adult is in school, while your student is still in school. But the other service that DARS provides is what's called vocational rehabilitation services. And these services are aimed only for people who want an integrated competitive job in the community. So any type of job that you or I would go for. And it could be full-time or it could be part-time. It could just be a few hours a week. There's no, it doesn't have to be a full-time job, just that it be independent in the community. And this service is a longer application process for, but you apply for it, and the services that they provide are things around like helping write a resume, helping people get ready for a job, taking them on job interviews, and then that initial kind of job training. And then once the individual is doing well and settled in their job, DARS will fade away. This is a very limited number of hours for a very short term, unlike a waiver, which provides numerous hours of support a day over the lifespan of the individual. This is very limited hours, very short term. DARS also offers the Wilson campus program at the Wilson Workforce and Rehabilitation Center. The WWRC is located in Fishersville, Virginia, and it's a campus, and they do a whole host of, they do vocational evaluation, vocational training, medical rehabilitation. They have a really good driver instruction program, and it all takes place at their campus. They are expanding some of their virtual opportunities, but a lot of the things they do now are on their campus. So it also gives students a chance to see what it's like to live on a campus, have some, you know, independence. Okay. So then I mentioned before, DARS and the DD waiver and the CSB all work with adult service providers. Sometimes they're called employment service organizations, they're called vendors, but these are all service providers that offer individual supported employment, group supported employment, some day supports. And I really encourage families, and we have a list again in our resource library of different providers in the area. So I encourage families to Google them, do some informational interviews with them, learn what are they like, what are the different programs that they offer. And the kinds of things you want to think about is like, what does a typical day look like? If your child is only working like 2 days a week, how do you make up the rest of those days to make a meaningful week, a meaningful life? And what does that look like? I really encourage families when their child is graduating to build, again, we have this as a resource as well, what's called a positive personal profile. Think about the environment your child is going to be successful in. What are the things they like to do, strengths, and what are the things that they need some support? What are their goals? Kind of think about big picture. And so some of this to kind of help you, I did this chart to try and help you understand how everybody is connected. So all of those adult service providers are in the middle, and they pretty much take money from anywhere. So they will get funding through the DD waiver. If you're on the waiting list for the DD waiver, they'll take money from the CSB, that's your local tax dollars. They also take money for DARS, for the short-term support services, whether that be the pre-X, those services while you're in school, or the VR services, those are the vocational rehab services for an independent job. And then they also will accept private pay, in some cases for like small, like job coaching kind of short-term services. If you're someone that needs more day support, that would be cost prohibitive. But if it's kind of shorter term job coaching services, they will accept private pay. So the other thing you want to think about when your child is turning 18 is applying for supplemental security income, or SSI. And SSI is cash-based assistance to be used for food and shelter. Primarily, that's what it's for. It's cash-based assistance to be used for those things. And so the monthly amount in 2024 is $943 a month. And you have to have, the individual has to have a resource limit of only $2,000. So we're going to talk next about if your child has more than $2,000, what do you do with that money? But one of the things that they're going to ask you when you go to apply for SSI is, do you charge your child rent? And the answer is absolutely yes, because that is what the money is to be used for. What you do with that after you take that money out is up to you. If you don't really want to use it for rent, but that is really what it's needed to be used for. And if you don't spend it on that, or you say you're not going to use it for that, Social Security will automatically deduct a third from that monthly amount. In our resource library, again, I keep plugging that, we have a sample room and board agreement. And we also have another one-pager on how to determine rent. Sometimes people do a portion of the mortgage. Sometimes people do comparables of room rentals in the area. And sometimes the Social Security person will ask, how did you determine rent? And they like it done a certain way, and sometimes they won't. So it kind of depends on the worker that you have. So just a couple of kind of Social Security tips and tricks. You can start the process by establishing a My SSA account online, and really be as descriptive as possible when you're responding to the questions. The person who is reading it all in the beginning and is doing the intake with you is not the person who is making the determination. So being as descriptive as possible is really important. Also, doing summaries. If you have reports, like multiple pages of reports from physicians or school records, those are things you want to condense into like a summary of a couple of pages. Anything that makes it easier and more concise for the person who is making the determination is more helpful. When you talk to Social Security, always keep a record of the date, the name of the person, what you asked, and what they told you. Always make copies of everything you give to Social Security, and always open and read everything, comply with deadlines. And then once your child is working, you have to report pay stubs each month and keep those records in a file. So those are just some kind of tips and tricks. We have a lot of information on our website about that. Okay, so those are kind of all the sources of public funds. Now we want to think about what are you going to do to leave, if you want to leave money to your child and not disqualify them from any public benefits that may be available to them, like the waiver and Social Security. So there's two ways to do that, through a special needs trust and also an ABLE account. And in Virginia, that program is called ABLE Now. So a special needs trust should be part of your overall estate planning. This allows families to put money aside for their child without jeopardizing any benefits. And there's two types of trusts, a family-funded trust and a self-funded trust. And a family-funded trust is just that, money the family leaves to the child. But then a self-funded trust is if the money has already come to the individual with a disability, usually through like a settlement from an accident, maybe something good like they won the lottery, a lump sum payback from Social Security, money that's already given to them, a military survivor benefit, child support, all of that can go into a self-funded trust. And a trust can be used to pay for any life-enhancing expenditures. It can pay for anything that Social Security does not pay for. So you can't use a trust to pay for rent, but other life-enhancing expenditures are fine. You can open up a trust with an attorney, a bank, or we have one at the Arc of Northern Virginia, which is called a pooled special needs trust, which means that the money is pooled together for investment purposes, but you all have your own account within that. The fees I have listed there. If you want to learn more about our trust program, we do a virtual Trust Talk Tuesday, which is just like this. It's a small group, but only focused on the trust and other financial matters. And so you can ask questions. It's very informal. So, and then you can also have a free consultation also. Then the other kind of tool in the toolbox is an ABLE account. An ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience Act. And this is all done online. ABLE now is the program, like I said, in Virginia, which was created in 2016. And it's a Virginia 529 account. So it's just like a college savings account. The ABLE accounts can only be used for qualified disability expenses, although this is super broad. Anything, education, transportation, it's supposed to somehow be related to the disability. But it encompasses quite a few different items. The biggest differences between an ABLE account and a special needs trust is that there's many, and again, in our resource library, we have a good kind of comparison of all of them. But the ones that the two biggest differences that stand out are that in an ABLE account, you can only put in $18,000 per year. That amount goes up every year. It's tied to the gift tax. And over the life of an ABLE account, only the first $100,000 are not counted as income for SSI purposes. So like, let's say you had a life insurance policy that you wanted to leave your child, and the life insurance policy was, $200,000. Obviously, that's something you would need to put in a trust and not into an ABLE account. But an ABLE account is a great tool. It's very affordable, great for quick money in, easy to get out. So many people have both ABLE accounts and special needs trust. And the next and last thing I just want to talk about is the idea of the different legal tools that you want to think about using when your child turns 18 as they become an adult, and how you couple all of those legal tools along with building a supported decision-making team or a circle of support kind of idea. When we think about, we get calls constantly from families saying that my doctor told me, my teacher told me that my child's turning 18 and I have to apply for guardianship. And you don't, that's a myth. You don't have to apply for guardianship. Guardianship may be the right option, but we always want to look at the least restrictive options first, and guardianship is the most restrictive option. So there's lots of other things that you can put in place to safeguard an individual, like when your child becomes eligible for Social Security, you can be their representative payee so that you're able to help manage their funds. Fill out HIPAA forms so that you can communicate with doctors. Create powers of attorney. You can do this online yourself. The Disability Law Center of Virginia has a free template that you can use with guidelines of how to fill it out. You can also do an education power of attorney. The Virginia Department of Education has a template that you can download. You can also customize any powers of attorney. So you can do medical powers of attorney, advanced directives. Also, so those are some kind of least restrictive things that you can put in place that are super helpful. When you're then you can apply if guardianship if you feel those aren't working and guardianship is something that you want to pursue, there's no time frame on that. It's not like something you have to do right at 18. It could be done at any time. I have down kind of listed there limited guardianship and full. And limited guardianship means that the individual retains certain rights. And those are things that you have to request because otherwise they'll automatically be taken away. And the rights most people want to retain are voting and also driving. Guardianship fees in Northern Virginia are anywhere from $2,500 to $4,000. The process generally takes 2 to 3 months and must be done with an elder law attorney. But I wanted to talk a little bit about this idea of supported decision-making, which can be used along with any of the legal supports. But it's basically the idea that we all need help making decisions. There's all people in our life that we go to for different things. Maybe I have a financial advisor. I have a relative who's a doctor, and I'll go talk to him when I need medical, or I have medical questions. I have a neighbor who's great with cars. I reach out to him when I have a problem with my car and I need advice. So building kind of a circle of support around your loved one to help them understand who they should go to, how do they make good, who do they contact when they need help making decisions, and how do they get information. And these supported decision-making teams can be formal. Virginia DBHDS, Department of Health and Behavioral Services, came up with a supported decision-making template. And then we also have templates also on our website where you put all of the things, all of the decision-making kind of topics that your young adult needs help with. Who do they go to for what? And how can we build kind of a circle around that individual so that they can help learn and grow and learn to make better decisions. I say all the time, the decisions that I made when I was 18 are absolutely not the decisions that I would make now. And so our young adults should have that same opportunity to learn, make mistakes, and grow from them. There have been numerous studies on self-determination and how self-determination improves your quality of life and improves safety, and it increases independence. There have never been any studies shown that guardianship has made someone more safe. And I'm not saying that guardianship is wrong all of the time. It may be right in the right instance, but should always be best practice tells us it should always be looked at as a last resort, not as the very first resort. And then I think I pretty much said everything here. We have a lot of resources about supported decision-making on our website and also at the Disability Law Center of Virginia. They have lots of really good information on that as well. And then I will leave you with this and then take any questions because I'm getting close to my time here. I did want to leave these resources. I keep referencing our resource library a lot. Oh, and I'll send these slides out and then they can be, I'll send them to Cecilia and then she can send them out. That's the link to our resource library on our website. That other link there that says the Padlet for I mentioned earlier, we do a transition series every year. I created like a bulletin board with a whole bunch of different information on there. You can access that. That's a link to our YouTube channel with all of our recorded webinars. I mentioned the Disability Law Center of Virginia. The ARC Center, that's the National ARC, has a section on their website for future planning where you can build a future plan for your child kind of in the cloud and update it on an annual basis or however often you'd like to. The PTE, the Parent Education Advocacy and Training Center, has lots of great tools on their website. They also offer some really good webinars. ECNV, the Independent Center of Northern Virginia, provides travel training among other services, but they do travel training and they also have some social groups. And then finally, Charting the Life course has a lot of very nice tools around planning for the future, helping your child see who is in their life to help build a circle of support, and how to kind of create goals and plan how to get there. So just some good tools. And then finally, my information is there, and I'm always happy to take questions, emails, whatever at any time. So with that, I will stop sharing, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. Maybe nobody has any questions.
Quick question. I already have the CCC Plus waiver. I've yet to set up an ABLE account. When setting up an ABLE account, will that impact the like the reapplication that you have to do for the CCC Plus waiver as far as like financial for the individual?
No,
Do
the
you
ABLE account, that's the whole purpose of the ABLE account, for it not to be,
put it
yeah.
on there? In fact, I need to do my forms right now. Would you put it on there, or is it just like you pretend it doesn't exist until it's 100K or more?
No, you can still put it on there. Even Social Security will ask if you have an ABLE account or a special needs trust, so you can let them know they have it, that you have it, but it won't be counted against them.
Okay, all right, because I like I said, I need to do my forms. I also need to set up an ABLE account, but I've always been scared because I don't want to mess it up. So thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions? Yeah, okay, Lauren, hold on. Musical chairs. Yeah. Hey, my son also has a CCC Plus waiver, and he's had it for, I can't even remember how long, probably 7 or 8 years.
Mhm.
To issues recently, because we also have HIP, and so we have straight Medicaid. We don't have a managed care organization where people told me that I should have a care coordinator or a support coordinator, and I have no idea who this person is. And Moms in Motion doesn't know, DMAS doesn't know. So do you know who?
Who's telling you you need a support coordinator for what?
I have a lot of paperwork for CCC Plus waiver, and I've been running into issues where I need signatures from like a care coordinator. And I noticed that you mentioned that care coordinators manage the wait lists for these waivers. So is this someone through Arlington County that would be a care coordinator for the CCC Plus waiver?
No.
Okay.
So
No,
that's very interesting. Do you know what? I'm gonna I'm right. What's your name?
Lauren Mann.
Can I get, or could somebody type, can I get your email address and let's talk separately? Because I'm gonna have to investigate that. I don't know that. Or if you could type it in the chat.
Type it in the chat, yeah.
Do you have
So it's been an issue because of the lack of the insurance managed organization, but thank you. Very personal question.
Are we still recording this?
Oh, yeah. And you can trim the back.
Yeah. But you should have that, Diane. Her email is
Oh, I got it. Yep.
directly to